Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Zobiba Publish TV. My name is Yvette Johnston. I am an author, publisher, and the host of this program. Welcome. Well, Zobiba Publish TV, where we talk about matters of publishing. Matters of publishing will include journaling, writing, editing, storytelling, decision making, and all the skills included in the matters of publishing. You will get to know the other side of me as people are more familiar with me on a spiritual level. Well, as I've always said, there are two sides to a story, and there are two sides to every individual. Okay? Two sides to every individual. Your good side and your not so good side. Your left side and your right side. Your very influential side and your not so influential side. Your pessimistic side, your optimistic side. And personally, I do not believe that there is any individual who is purely optimistic or pessimistic. I just don't believe that. Okay, so there is a balance that you can find in people if you know how to bring the best attributes and reserve the not so best ones, okay? The not so good ones. So these are not as good as the best ones. Okay. So I personally do not believe that there is any individual that is a bad person. Okay? It's more like your behavior that causes people to think that you are a bad person. All right, so here is a question. Why do I say this? Here's my answer. This is because no one was created by the Creator to be bad. No one. He did not create some people as bad and some as good. No, he did not, right? He created all things good, otherwise he would not have been pleased with his creation. Okay? So it is just a matter of people being influenced in a bad way and then other people who are influenced in a good way. Now, this influence has derived from people, sliding or stepping off the path they were created to be traveling on. Here's another question for you. How can I influence you? How can I influence you? Here's the answer. I can influence you to write a book, to write something about yourself, to tell a story about your experience or one of your experiences in life. Okay? So write about something that affected you and you made a good return on what seemed like it would not have been an investment, okay? But you get a return on your investment, okay? So you made a good situation out of a bad situation. Okay, so here is a little story from me. I taught women in leadership at a newcomer center in Windsor, Ontario for almost 2 years. And the ladies, I motivated them, I taught them, motivational skills and all of that. And they would listen to my story and then they would ask me, how did you get to this point? How did you do this? How did you do that? Well, I inject another story by telling them that there was a lady who listened to my story. She did not finish hearing like a half of it, But she asked me, how many workshops can you create? So I told her I would create 2 workshops, right? That's for the person who is in charge of the leadership training program. The 2 workshops that I began with were transforming women in leadership, because it's a women leadership program. So transforming women in leadership. And the second one was from there to here. Well, from there to here, I spoke precisely to my evolution from being a disabled person after a motor vehicle accident, not being able to walk for 4 years, and then with a rotator cuff tear, right, in my right arm. But I evolved from that state to become a published author, writing my first book with my left hand, and I am not left hand dominant, right? So the first book I wrote was Poetic Masterpiece Volume 1. That was my therapy, my book of therapy, right? Poetry for therapy. But for other people, it was prophetic poetry, right? And they actually told me that because I had journalists from Australia, from Johannesburg, all over the place, Austria, and they came and met me and they told me, well, it's a prophetic book. Well, I said it was a book of therapy for me, okay? And it worked. Okay? So poetry is very can be very therapeutic. So that was the first book that I wrote. Well, this book allowed me to speak to the situations in people's lives, right? That's why they called it a prophetic book, right? So they said it was prophetic. I said it was therapeutic. So while it was a book of therapy for me, both mentally and emotionally, it was a book, like I said, a prophetic poetry for other people. You have no idea who you will influence with your writing. My creator is my influencer. Okay? Now, here's a question for you. Who is your influence or your influential person or the influential person in your life? Who is that person who influences you? Okay? That's something to think about. Okay, so back to the workshop, as I was saying. So the workshop from there to here, that was influenced by Poetic Masterpiece Volume 1. So it's after I wrote Poetic Masterpiece Volume 1, then I created that workshop from there to here. And I use the workshop to influence the young ladies in the leadership program to write their own poetry, recipes, short stories. They didn't know that if they wrote 4 lines, that's poetry, right? Just 4 lines. That's poetry. That's a poem. And they didn't know that. So I got to teach them that, which was good, which was a good thing. All right. Recipes. I told them that as long as you have 4 ingredients that are your own ingredients, that means you dash 4 things into whatever it is that you are cooking or baking. It's your recipe. Okay. That they didn't know. So they learned that as well. And then I told them to, write their poems, send them to me or their recipes, whatever it is, their short stories, and they did. So as a publisher now, I got to publish that book. So it is published. They don't even know about it as yet, but it is published, right? It is yet for them to get the knowledge of it. I'm just waiting for a little while. Okay. So they did something that they didn't know that they could have done, because many of the people told me, I can't write poetry, I can't do this, I can't do that. I've never done this before. But I watched them evolved from not being able to write poetry to writing poetry and writing their short stories okay, and writing recipes. And I've seen things that they've done which made such a vast difference. My influence on them sent waves of encouragement that drew them into the classroom of creativity. So, that's my poetic side, right? Okay. So, here is a challenge. Who influences you? Or who influenced you? Or who is influencing you? Okay. So, who influences you? Who is your influencer? Who do you influence? Is your influence good? Is it a good or bad connotation? So I hope I have influenced you in some way to start the journey of being a good influencer, because a good influencer is a good leader. Okay, that's a very good leadership skill, and people don't even know that. They think decision making is one of the best one. To be able to influence people, it is a very good leadership skill. You can make all the decisions you want, but then you can't influence people. Still not good. Okay, still not good. All right, so start your journey of being a good influencer. Then you will increase yourself to the position of a better influencer, to a great influencer. So while you're doing this, do not be influenced by haters, covetous people, right? Or people who are bad people. Other people would say negative people. I say bad people who tell you bad things about other people. Be careful who you listen to while you're in the process of being influenced, right? Or even trying to influence someone. So, next week, what I will talk about is I'll still talk about influence if there is another request, because people made requests and asked for, talk to us about influencing as a matter of publishing. How do you influence people? So I'll talk about influence as a magnet, or just continue, what I'm doing now, and do an episode 2. Now, I can tell you that basically I was influenced by a publisher who was also my professor at University of Windsor. When I was in his English, I was studying English and creative writing, but I was enrolled in his publishing and editing class. I just almost bit my tongue. Anyway, publishing and editing class, right? And he was chief editor at the Windsor Star. Now, it's amazing that when I actually went to talk to him about getting into his class, they basically placed me in first year at University of Windsor after I did first year at York University already, right? And he placed me in his English in his editing and publishing class at University of Windsor, fourth year. Fourth year publishing and editing at University of Windsor. No joke. And the reason why I was placed in fourth year, because I was with the students who were graduating their fourth year. That's because I wrote the first 2 books, Poetic Masterpiece Volume 1 and Poetic Masterpiece Volume 2. And he was shocked that I wrote the first book with my left hand. He said, "How did you write so many pages? It's 300 and something pages. How did you write so many pages with your left hand?" Right? And then I started my second book with my left hand. And then when I got healed, I finished it with my right hand. Okay? Who was my influencer? My creator. Good. So he healed me. so I can sit and talk to you today about editing and publishing, and about the matters of publishing. So now that I am a Canadian publisher, you know what? It feels good to be in that position, but a whole lot of people will look at you, and because you don't tell them that you're a publisher, they will think that, okay, well, who is she? What is she? Well, we stay in our lane. So that doesn't really matter at this point. The whole point is you have been you have evolved, and I have evolved, right? From being a non-publisher to a publisher, with all the things that the publishers put me through. Or they offered me money to do this and all that kind of stuff, and what they were doing was actually taking money from my accounts. That was not a publisher. That was an agent who claimed that he was working for the publisher, right? So you have to be careful when people say that they're agents and they're working for publishers, and so they're going to get you an advance, and they put it in writing. I had the experience with a guy in New York, and he claimed that he was an agent for a publishing company. And so what he did, he said he was going to get me an advance. So we were negotiating the advance, not knowing that the guy was a criminal. For real, he was a criminal. And so what he did, I didn't give him an account, a bank account. What I said to him was, okay, since you're getting me the advance and I don't have any money, that's what I said, right? Then the first, he said I have to pay a certain amount of money. I've never heard of that. So I said, okay, well, why don't you pay that amount for me? I did not give him my bank account information. Okay. But money started getting deducted from a bank account. So what kind of agent was he? I don't know what a starfish agent is, but somebody said he was a starfish agent. So I found out after, doing my research, I found out that a starfish agent is a thief. So they act as if they're working for the publishing company, but they're really working for people who are collecting money. You know what I mean? From other people. Basically like creditors and different types of people, but they pose as agents. So you got to be careful, right? Another situation I had with a publishing company in the States, United States of America. This publishing company basically got my book. I sent them my manuscript. Rules of engagement. Nobody has ever written rules of engagement. That's my book. And I came up with the book because I wanted to help young people or people who were thinking about engagement or proposals, right? To understand that there are certain things that you don't do when you're engaged. Okay? You try to still keep yourself as a virtuous woman and, you know, keep your morality together and all that kind of stuff. Because if a man gets you where he wants you, that's where he's going to leave you. So I was trying to use the wisdom in me to help other people based on experience. And they took the book, the publisher took the book, and all of a sudden, books were sold. So it's pre-sold, right? They did pre-sale on the books. And there was an episode, several episodes of a play or movie, something, and it was called Rules of Engagement. They have it dated for 2013, but based on the evidence that we found because of investigation, I found out that no, it was my book. So it was sold to someone to do a play as a play. Knowing that I always, when I write a book, I write a play or a movie that's attached to it. That is so true. Okay. So I write something that is attached to it. So I don't just write the book. I write the book and I write a movie or I write a play, okay, that can be used with the book. Well, they have a play or a movie, whatever it's called. You can always research rules of engagement. It's my stuff that they took. I have another situation where I stood in the house and I was doing my selfies. So I take my own pictures myself, put them on my book because I like when I have the selfie pictures. I don't always use professional pictures. Why? Because I'm trying to tell a story, right? And I'm trying to tell my story in a different way. Well, some people actually took, because they had listening device and camera in the house, they watched me, they took my, my creativity, and basically a young woman in Florida, she published a book, My Selfie Has No Filter, right? And they basically watched me in the house as I wrote, My Selfie Has No Filtration Device. So she published a book, My Selfie Has No Filter, and she went and she did conference on it, children's conference, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying, how do you feel when you steal people's stuff like that? It came from out of the house. Another book I wrote, it's a book of quotes, all quotes. I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I wrote the quotes as I got the dictation. And someone in Nigeria published a book because they were watching in the house. See, people don't even know when they give away evidence, because if you publish something that I wrote and I know that I wrote it and it was published by a mother and a child, somebody is going to know that it's my stuff. I was mentoring PhDs at the time, still mentoring PhDs, but at that time I had started mentoring PhDs, and a PhD found it somewhere and then informed me, your book that you just wrote, Yvette, your book is published where? In Nigeria. Well, why are you stealing people's stuff and then publishing it? In Poetic Masterpiece, I wrote at the back of it, his story, my story. Okay? So I was telling a bit of my story of the things that I've been through, right? But the publisher at that time didn't want me to write it in the front of the book. So I had to basically squeeze it in at the back of the book. And then I wrote a book, his story, my story. The book is written. But guess what? Else used it based on what they saw from the house. They use it as a podcast, the title of a podcast. It's my story. His story is my story. It's my book. But people take it and they use it. I don't know how people don't have conscience that they can turn around to do things like these. I just wanted to tell my story because matters of publishing, we're going to talk about everything to do with publishing, right? And people can't just steal people's stuff like that. My stuff are under copyright. So if you're going to take people's things like that and just run with it, then you know what that is? That's stealing. Plus, they gave evidence that there was a listening device and camera in the house. Because if someone could watch me write the quotes and then take it and go publish it, then how else would you have gotten it? People are getting up into people's computers and stealing stuff. Stop stealing, because that's stealing. You cannot get up into people's computer, right? And then create another password or another username. They created another username on my computer to get into my system. That's stealing. That's stealing. I don't take people's stuff like that. I don't do that. And I didn't expect people to do that, either when taking my stuff. But I realize people don't care and they have no form of consciousness. no form of consciousness, that they just take your stuff and just run with it. Just after I started walking, we moved to another house, and I sat on the steps. And when I sat on the steps, I asked someone to take a picture of me. The picture was taken, and I wrote the title of my book, right? 7 Steps to Being Chosen. It was 7 steps to walking up the house from the first floor to the second floor. 7 steps. That's where I got the idea of the book. 7 steps to being chosen. I said, wow, I'm chosen. Because if I wasn't chosen, there's no way I would have recovered from this motor vehicle accident, and knowing that during that time, nobody paid me or anything like that, and I still survived. And I said, 7 steps to be chosen. Well, pretty boss took 7 steps to be chosen. How did she get access in the house? How did she get access in the house? And the Lord said to me, Marvin Sapp was the one who stole it. They just come and steal people's stuff and hand them over to other people. So I must not make money. They must do it. 7 steps to be chosen. That's my book. The book is written. But somebody took it, ran with it, and then ended up doing a conference from it. How is it that you can steal people's stuff like that and it doesn't make a difference to you? It doesn't hurt you. There's no form of consciousness, no integrity, no moral, nothing. This is a matter of publishing. As a matter of publishing, I just want to say I thank God that at least He gave me the opportunity. I think I told my story so many times and somebody heard it. And so, I got the opportunity to be able to create a corporation and then to be a publisher. But, it's just not right. And God is a God who He hates wrong and He loves justice. And He said, I gave you double. So my workshop, my corporation that I really use to do leadership training and development, and then publishing, the other corporation for publishing, He said, I'll give you double. And people are still stealing. Like, what else are they going to steal? Let me just throw it out to the people who might hear this. What else are you going to steal? Because it sounds like if you catch me, you take one hand, one foot, one something, one toe, one something. Be careful what you do. As a matter of publishing, you have to have some integrity that's connected to your name. A good name is better than riches. So when you steal from people in order to become rich, guess what happened? I've always heard this. Thief from thief, God laughs. Okay? Thief from thief, God laughs. That means when you steal from somebody else is going to come and steal from you, and God is going to turn around and laugh at the two of you stealing from each other. Okay? All right. So be encouraged to like, share, comment, subscribe, and let's keep this program growing for greater influence. Do this by showing me what your position of influence is, or what position of influence do you hold. Okay? By sharing, liking, commenting, subscribing, and I'm going to watch that to see what position of influence do you hold. Okay? For your coaching needs, please check the section with all the information and sign up, and I'll be here for you. Okay? All right. So we publish your way. Have a great day. And it is as a matter of publishing. Have a great day. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.